What's up? What's going on? It is the Wrestling Mat. It's Tuesday. We're halfway through July. On the road to SummerSlam. Is that still a thing? Remember Highway to Hell back in 98? They're not licensing that music, but Jelly Roll seems to be involved. But he's not involved in this show. You can be, though, at thewrestlingmatshow.com. As always, right above Todd. You can subscribe right now. You won't miss anything. You won't miss yesterday's show. If you did, you go back and listen to me catching up on everything after being out there for a bit. But back here with you, I brought up an idea that I think would make sense for Roman Reigns' return promo as a babyface. Also talked a lot about how the dynamics will shift when a super-duper over massive babyface Roman Reigns returns and what it means for Cody Rhodes, all on yesterday's episode. Plus, we talked about the talent sharing between TNA and WWE. WWE sending Io Sky over to Marigold. Julia's there. She's coming over in NXT. AJ Styles wrestling in Noah. What all of that could mean for the future. Talked all about that. Talked about the signing of Stephanie Vaquer off of the run with AEW and the Forbidden Door and the matchup with Mercedes Moné and the hot run that she's had over the last 6 months, really making a name for herself in CMLL. Guess what? She's now a WWE superstar, wrestled 2 matches and on their Mexico shows over the weekend. Even got mentioned on Monday Night Raw and said she's coming to NXT. Will we see her tonight? Don't know about that just yet. But that is NXT, and that is coming up. And there it is. Don't forget, if you get us a super chat between now and Friday's episode, it gets you into the giveaway for the signed Double J Bendy. A signed Double J, Jeff Jarrett Bendy. And yeah, I think Jeff's been doing some of the best work of his career over the last few weeks. I truly believe that in terms of how he is capturing the audience with a lot of real stories, a lot of real emotion. I talked to him about it a little bit, and everything you're seeing and have seen on AEW television, I don't think anybody's surprised to hear is as real as it gets. That emotion is very real. He was a very important part of telling the story of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, not only being part of it, trying to uphold the legacy, the honor of Owen Hart, and being part of the finals with Hangman and Bryan Danielson. And I would have to say that the work Jeff has done certainly warrants more of Jeff Jarrett. And a happy belated birthday to him. But if you want to get in the giveaway for that signed Double J Bendy, signed by the Last Outlaw himself, super chats from now until Friday will get you answered. So not only do they get you entered into the giveaway, but you move to the front of the line as we're talking about things here on the Wrestling Mat, the most interactive pro wrestling show out there. And I just got a little note from someone right before we started. They're listening on both sides. They're listening in a very big way. And dare I say, they're a little worried. Let's get into Monday Night Raw, shall we? Yes. And on top of that, before we get into Monday Night Raw, we are now offering memberships here starting at $2.99. If you'd like to be part of that, make sure you go over to thewrestlingmatshow.com, check out our memberships. We'll be doing things like membership-only chats, live streams for various shows with just whoever's a member and myself. Our merchandise is coming out soon. You'll get discounts on that. Private Zooms as you get higher up in the membership tiers. And yes, even the chance to choose a wrestling show to go back and watch with me. And when we do that, it doesn't go out to the rest of the world, so we can actually watch it together and see that. Check out our memberships. They start at $2.99. Love to have you aboard. I will be making a couple of media appearances in the next couple of weeks. More on that coming soon. One is a news outlet that I am a big fan of. I think they do great work. Did great work at Money in the Bank. And another one is a classic wrestling show. I'll put it that way. Those will be coming up. I don't want to give away too much yet. We're still working on some of the dates and times for that, but I'll be making appearances on those shows in the coming weeks. But right here, you're with us now. I thank you for that at The Wrestling Mat and thewrestlingmatshow.com. Please make sure you follow us on social media at WrestlingMat23. So I said we get into Raw. I did not get to everything I wanted to yesterday. We'll get to as much as I can as it relates to AEW. We'll still have some time tomorrow as we break down NXT. But let's talk about Monday Night Raw. So I put this question out, and we could put it up as a poll here maybe. Based on what I saw from Raw last night, I put this question up on social media right before we got started. Who do you prefer as your main character of Monday Night Raw? Because to me, last night we saw 2 people that were woven throughout the show. Rhea Ripley and Chad Gable. Who do you prefer? And it could be both. I'm not saying you have to necessarily say one's better than the other, but to me, those were the two people that were very intentionally woven through Monday Night Raw. Now, we'll start with Rhea. Big promo to start the show. Dom's out there. Liv's not out there. They set up the SummerSlam match. She's not happy. That's the end of Raw from last week. So where are they going with this? Well, first of all, they signed the match for SummerSlam. Done deal. Rhea challenging Liv for the title she never lost, but the title she had to give up because she got injured by Liv Morgan. And I thought about this a bit. And when Liv got injured for real last year, they had to write her off. So how'd they write her off? Rhea beat the hell out of her. Rhea sending a message to the rest of the locker room. As heel as can be. Very completely heel Rhea Ripley. Total babyface Liv Morgan. So Liv comes back for revenge. And she takes out Rhea. Now, admittedly, since the injury to Liv last year, and Rhea being the one to do so, there was always that undercurrent of people who loved Rhea. Why she's so popular, why she's their biggest TikTok star, why she, connects with seems like every single demographic for a variety of reasons. She has been the straw that stirs the drink on Raw, whether she's champ or just being part of Judgment Day, whatever. She was working out deals with Bloodline, you name it. She handled the business. I never called her the leader of Judgment Day. There was always questions about it. It was very clear that was the role that she was playing. So she takes out Liv, and Liv comes back and attacks Rhea. Now, it was not meant to take her out. She just happened to get injured, shoulder going into the wall. So Liv takes her out. So she gets her revenge. Now, to me, it's pretty fair. However, they spun this into Liv being a heel. And being a heel full-blown really for the first time in her career. And I know she did stuff with the Riot Squad. I'm saying focused, heel, close to the top of the card work. You're going to get a push. You're going to get a push as a heel. We're going to feature you. That's what they did. And they started the Dom story. And she gets the title off of Becky. And Becky's gone. And they keep rolling with Liv as a heel. And I get it. There's still that undercurrent of popularity, much like Rhea has, but her actions are that of a heel for the most part. You're putting her up against baby faces. She's messing with Judgment Day. She's being quite pushy with Dom, and that is a polarizing thought about how would that be perceived if the roles were reversed. But it's a TV show, so we go from there. And everybody knew when Rhea would come back, she'd be coming after Liv. And when you are a super over anybody, whether you're getting a ton of heat as a heel or you're super over as a babyface, if you go out by injury, 9 times out of 10, you're getting the babyface big pop. Exactly what happened with Rhea last week. Exactly what happened when she opened the show last night. That is what you expect. There was always going to be a babyface turn for Rhea Ripley. Now, I do appreciate that in this day and age, you have to answer for your actions, right? Jey Uso became a babyface because he left the bloodline and he went up against Roman. He still did a lot of terrible stuff to people along the way. And when he got to Raw, he had to answer for that. And he had Sammy backing him up and he had Cody backing him up, but Drew didn't want to hear it. Others didn't want to hear it. They questioned him. Randy questioned him. Eventually, people are okay with it. I could see that happening, with Rhea, where she has to answer for her actions. But she's beloved. Now, I bring that up because how it's aligned right now. So you may not know this, and it gets brought up. There's an internal roster in WWE. It's at the end of every script. It is there's places to exit internally, and it will tell you who is classified as a babyface, who's classified as a heel. Those things are there. People get moved around. It might take a week or two, okay, they shifted this group or they shifted this person. They're a babyface. They're a heel. Whatever it might be. And shout out to WWE for Life 316. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. But they have that internal roster. I'm not saying it's an end-all, be-all. I'm not saying anything like that, but it exists. It still may have Rhea and Liv both under the heel females right now. That very well could be a thing. You listen to the crowd, you know that Rhea is being presented as a babyface. Even if she's still with Judgment Day. If she talks down to Dom, if she checks him, Dom's the most hated person in wrestling, arguably. So she's going to be a babyface off of that. Dom is, to me, barring some emotional reunion with his dad, Dom's a heel until further notice. And I don't see any reason to change that. To me, he might be a lifetime heel now. He has to end up with Liv. Like, that's you can't tell me that Rhea's going to come back and end up with Dom. Because then she's not a babyface. And I think there's a big babyface run in her. Especially with Becky gone. Rhea's at the top of the heap. Rhea going over Becky was done for a reason at WrestleMania. Obviously, the injury sidetracked all of that, but Rhea's going to be a babyface. Dom should end up with Liv. And maybe what we kind of saw last night with, Jay saying, is Rhea single? And then Priest going like, you're going to let that happen? And then Dom standing up for himself, and they set up the match. He's saying, well, you're mine. She's like, you're mine. And they had everybody in the back going like, dude, you screwed up even worse. He can keep trying to fight to get her back. I never wanted Liv. And at some point, he's going to go, you know what? I don't need you. I'm with the champ. I'm with Liv Morgan. She actually cares about me. That's probably where they're going. Now, I want to bring this up because the dynamics of Judgment Day are a bit murky right now, right? It seems like, and we'll get to this a little bit later on, Damian Priest is being positioned more as a babyface now. The promo last night, well, we'll get to it now, I guess. The promo with Gunther is a heel, and I had said, man, Gunther Priest as a SummerSlam matchup doesn't feel big. It's you have a very at the crossroads Damian Priest who has had a world title reign marred by interference, marred by other people being bigger stars and being presented in a bigger way than him. The Drew Punk stuff has been all over his reign. He won the title because of Punk. He kept the title because of Punk. He kept the title because of Punk again. He's been a background player to Drew and CM Punk throughout his entire reign. He doesn't even have a title defense in Saudi. Second PLE as champ. He's not on the show. He had that one thing with Jey Uso. That's it. He's been a background player in his own group to everything that's going on with Liv and Dom, and now Rhea coming back. So now you've kind of positioned him in this spot where he's almost like they're almost going for this underdog and talking about his upbringing, where he came from. And the Gunther promo about it was biting. And I watched the promo, and I thought about it that Gunther's promos are very direct. They're very to the point. He doesn't try to mince words. He'll give you a little respect, but he'll pull it back, and he'll go after you. He did it with Miz. He did it with Sammy. I think they could be a little quicker, but his words bite. He doesn't waste time. I think he could be a little quicker, but I don't think he wastes time, if that makes sense. And the positioning of that last night was, here was Priest's tough upbringing, where he came from, battling on the streets, and Gunther saying, well, I had everything from my parents, and WWE was knocking down my door. That's how you do it. That makes sense. Shout out to WWE for Life 316. Appreciate that, and you're now in the giveaway for the Double J Jeff Jarrett Bendy. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you for that. Don't miss that show. But they position Priest in that way, so you have at least some dynamics that somewhat make sense. I think they want you to cheer Priest. They want you to boo Gunther. It is Gunther's time. He should not lose. Priest should get pissed off and lose because he got caught up in everything else that's going on Judgment Day and he lost focus. You probably turn him babyface. He knew about Rhea coming back. I think that's also telling. He told Dom, hey, listen, you were too busy doing other stuff. Okay. But the fact that he knew Rhea was coming back tells me they'll be on the same side. Maybe they don't stick together forever, but they're on the same side. But it brought me back as I was thinking of the dynamics of, JD and Finn kind of sucking up to Rhea. Hey, we know Liv helped us. And she's like, hey, listen, the titles are back here. I'm good with it. And Carlito's doing whatever the hell. He just plays video games in the background now. He's their lackey. Whatever. He just gets to be there. And Dom's stuck between Liv and Rhea. And Priest is kind of on his own. He was even buddy-buddy with Jey Uso last night. But Priest being on his own very much right now, which I think he wants to be in character because he's trying to prove himself as a champion. And I thought about all the different dynamics and how Dom has really been a centerpiece of all this. And I thought back, and it jogged my memory. When Judgment Day became what it is, with Finn and Rhea and Priest. The three of them came into the Bump Studio and did an episode with us. This is when Rhea was doing the whisper stuff to Dom. Middle of last year, maybe? No, even back further. It goes back even further than that. That's not right. Anyway, it was only those three, and it wasn't Dom. And Dom had been on the show plenty of times before as a heel, as part of Judgment Day, but this was at the beginning. He would come on as part of Judgment Day later on. But at the beginning, even though he was with the group, here's your weird story about all this. They didn't know what they were quite doing. Like, I was told, and I've been asked about this stuff, when you get told to say stuff or not say stuff, Dom's not part of Judgment Day. Like, that was creative to us. He's not part of Judgment Day, which was so confusing. This was the whispers at the time. We shoot a cold open with me and Gulak, and Rhea whispers in my ear. We played off of that. He wasn't, like, we were told he's not part of the group. And we kind of mentioned it to the three of them, and they're like, we don't know. He obviously was part of the group, and there was very much mixed messaging because I think at the time, and this is just me reading the tea leaves, they weren't sure how ready Dom was for that spot. Like, they were almost trying to protect him. And they were all looking out for him. Was extremely well liked. I still think he is. I've had nothing but good interaction with Dom Mysterio. I liked doing stuff with him. He was fun. By the way, from the jump, always did well in terms of audience, in terms of clicks. Whether it was with his dad, obviously stuff with Rhea. He's a draw on social media, if you believe in those things. But Dom, as a heel at the beginning, way more subservient to Rhea. That was the whole thing. And I don't think creative was totally sure how ready he was for that role. We see what's happened now, and I think they've cultivated that. I think they've all helped him. And I think if you ask anybody, and I bring this up because I know Finn did an interview recently, and he's like, it's weird because we were kind of there to help Dom where he has helped us. And I believe both of those things. I think that's completely true. That Dom, being the shit stir that he is, has rubbed off on the rest of them. And they played into that. But if you watch early on, watch some of those early promos when Dom's part of the group, the confidence is not completely there. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're asking him to play a completely different role. He had turned on his dad. He became part of Judgment Day. They were beating him. She was beating him up for a while. He was new. I think everybody would have said, Dom will wear the mask at some point and he'll just live on the Mysterio legacy. Kind of ran out of gas with that. And look what it turned into. Became one of the most over people in the company in his role. But it took time to get there. Those early promos, there's some trepidation. Now, the boos helped. Because then you know you're doing your job right. And guess what you don't have to do? When you're getting booed, you don't have to say anything. You can look flustered. You can tell people to shut up. You can soak them in. And watch Finn. Watch Rhea. Watch Priest. And some of those. There's some guiding there. Even if it's a nod or off camera, and that's fine. And look where it got them. So they did the right thing. But early on, even when people thought he was a member of the Judgment Day, we were getting notes from creative, don't say he's part of Judgment Day yet. Because they hadn't officially put him in. I don't even know if there was a time when they officially put him in. Everybody thought of him as part of the group, but there was that separation. And they didn't have him come into the studio that day. They had it be Finn, and they had it be Rhea, and they had it be Priest. And we had them all on before. I think they had all been in at least once before. But they kept Dom separate because they wanted to guide him into that role and what it would be. And I thought of that last night, and it just totally jogged my memory. It was like, oh, they don't want to acknowledge he's in the group yet. They want to treat him with kid gloves. I think there's a respect level to his dad, Rey Mysterio. I think there is a respect level to Dom and everything he was asked to do and now being asked to do something completely different. So they took their time. I thought it was weird to not acknowledge he was part of the group. Everybody knew he was. Obviously now he's synonymous with the group. As much as anybody, as he should be. And now he's coming to his own, where the role he is playing now, there are varying levels of character confidence. Think about the story I just told you and think about how he's been used. He's been carrying or right in the middle of a major story every single week, multiple segments, in the ring, backstage, you name it. He's right in the middle of that. He'll be right in the middle of that at SummerSlam. I don't think his custody will be on the line, which is a bummer. But he's right in the middle of it, and he's handling it well. I've said I've not been a huge fan of Liv being the world champ and the title being a background player. That is separate from the fact that Dom has done a great job in the role and has done a great job for his entire heel run. I know the heat he got in Mexico this weekend was tremendous. You know, he got to win over his dad. He got a victory over his dad last week. And I'm interested to see where he's at in a few years. He's playing the role he needs to play right now in a major storyline and doing it well. Dom also, I believe, last year had the most matches of anybody in the company, which is good for two reasons. One, yeah, he needs the reps too. This is my entire argument with everybody in NXT. If you're young and up and coming and they see something in you, well, the only way you're going to get better is to work. That's what Dom did. He works a ton. He's gotten better. He is not the pushover I think he was presented as when he first started the feud with Seth. And the stuff with, Buddy Matthews and all that stuff. He's credible. Way more credible now. I don't think he's going to be a world champ or anything like that without a ton of help, but he's certainly more credible in the ring than he was initially. And that's because he worked a bunch and he was around the right people. And everybody he's working is got more experience than him for the most part. That went a long way. I think the story is better with Rhea around. I'm glad the world title's back in the mix. Now, PW Insider, and I think it was Mike Johnson, reported that it doesn't appear that Rhea's fully cleared yet. So there was no physicality last night. There was no physicality last week. Liv hightailed it out of there last night. She was, via satellite, backstage, whatever, pre-tape. She wasn't out there with Rhea. No physicality. We got a few weeks to go. Not a lot of time. SummerSlam's early this year. So that will be telling when we see her get physical. Because if someone deserves in storyline to get physical, it's Rhea. She's pissed. So we'll see how much they can book around that between now and SummerSlam. But sounds like she'll be ready to go. Mike Johnson reported that there was initial creative that talked about her coming back at SummerSlam or her coming back the day after. Apparently, she said, I'll be good to go by then. Let's do it. And you know what? She wanted to be on one of the biggest shows of the year, especially at this time. I get it. Hopefully, she's not pushing it. And I think something to keep an eye on in the coming weeks is her physicality. Does she work any house shows, live events, whatever the hell you want to call them? Those are things to keep an eye on when it comes to Liv and Rhea and that match and where it's going. I think they'll get more than one out of it because I would assume that Dom will side with Liv just because Rhea can't be a babyface with Dom. It just can't work that way. Back to Priest and Gunther. We'll jump on this a little bit. And I see a couple of the people mention, I said, Jeroy, I said the same thing. They're technically even. They are. Unless Liv takes Dom, and then they're not. Priest and Gunther, I talked about a little bit. I mean, I think Liv Rhea feels bigger. I think Punk and Drew, when it gets booked, is bigger. I obviously think Cody and Solo will be a bigger deal. It doesn't feel like a SummerSlam world title match. It feels like Shinsuke and Jinder. That's what that feels like. Middle of the card. Not a big deal. I don't think that's good for Gunther if he's going to win. I think him kind of being a background player since King of the Ring and not even making appearances at times. And I don't know if he had time off because he's a new dad or whatever. Or, sometimes that's visa stuff they got to handle. I don't know. Because I don't think that was even reported. But he was not very visible on Raw since he won King of the Ring. Here and there. And they're trying to heat that up. And the crowd was there with it a bit last night. I think that Priest getting that win over Braun was important, especially hitting his finish. And that's also telling how they want to position Priest. You have Priest hit his finish and pin Braun 1, 2, 3 in the middle. You don't beat Braun like that with a guy you want to be a heel. You beat Braun like that with a guy you're trying to build back up. And a guy you want the people to get behind. Beating Braun like that is a significant deal because he's their biggest guy. Literally their biggest guy. You don't typically see those clean 1, 2, 3 beat with the finish right in the middle wins. And yeah, it happened against the world champ, but think about Priest's reign. So him beating Braun last night, getting back into it with Gunther after, they're trying to heat that up. And I think the crowd is naturally going to get behind Priest if they have to pick one of the two. It just feels like a weird time to turn him back with Gunther seemingly primed to win his first world championship. And maybe that just becomes an anger with Judgment Day and they got too involved and I told you not to get involved and everybody's getting involved in my stuff. And maybe that's the story they will tell. And Gunther begins his reign as the world champ. Speaking of the world title, and I didn't get to talk about this last week, the stuff with Seth and Punk. For as little as I liked the world title match at Money in the Bank with Priest and Seth and the messed up finish and Priest once again being a background. I mean, I don't mind the stuff with Drew and Punk. That's great. But once again, it's made the world title, or had made the world title, made the champ, I should say, not the championship. Difference here. It made the champ a background player. What I liked about that is they went back to the Rumble. They went back to pre-Rumble. Because Punk holding the world championship and taking a look at it, clearly something he wants, but it's something that Seth Rollins wanted. So Punk getting involved with Seth pissed Seth off. And Punk apologizing and coming back around and going, but not quite. And Seth throwing it back in his face. That is the chaos that Punk brings. That is the chaos that could make him a heel or a babyface. And it's all about presentation. And he can handle either one. On a given week, he can handle either one. Drew beating up referees, Drew doing what he did at the post show, where the press conference was kind of in the background. They're trying to make Drew this unhinged guy. I like him more for that. I liked that they didn't last night do the paint by numbers of he was, okay, I'm sorry, I'll do what I do to get the match. And then no, he was still pissed. He wasn't going to apologize. He still pushed refs over. He's still suspended. Now, that could easily be part of the story, or because Punk's not completely cleared, much like Rhea may not be completely cleared. Maybe Punk's not all the way cleared yet. So, let's drag it out a little more. Now, Punk's back next week. They're saying Drew's suspended. Here's my question. Because of the Drew suspension, because of the Punk injury, and because of how unhinged everything has been about this rivalry, with 0 matches. Yes, they were in the Rumble together. But we are 6 months later, and those two haven't had a match yet for various reasons. Punk getting hurt. Still recovering. Drew, Money in the Bank, World title, all that stuff. Clash of the Cat. Because they haven't had the match, and there's been obstacles because of the match, and Drew last night still remaining suspended, do they go the unsanctioned match route? You know, there was that, I think it was that Clash of the Castle, somebody asked Punk that question, well, shouldn't you guys go right into Hell in a Cell? And he laughed it off, and he said, you got real Phil there for a second. He was a little angry, he was a little miffed, a little annoyed of, we don't go right into Hell in a Cell. But do you go right to a singles one-on-one wrestling match where you both hate each other and you want to tear each other apart? And there's been suspensions, and there's been here's her wristband, here's her bracelet. Let me dump you bloody in your hometown on a show I'm not supposed to be on. All of that stuff. 6 months of build. Going to be 7 by SummerSlam. To me, does not lead to a one-on-one singles match where there are rules and disqualifications and countouts, and you can't use it. There's no title on the line. They should have every opportunity to beat the hell out of each other and settle this. And I don't think they will in one match, and they shouldn't. But I don't think you can go one-on-one to just start this thing. I think it has to be something like unsanctioned. And if you want to get to bad blood and put it in Hell in a Cell, that's fine. It can build to that. We can get there. This feud warrants that. No, you should not start a feud with a Hell in a Cell match. No, when they had Hell in a Cell as a pay-per-view, random matches that hadn't had enough build shouldn't have been thrown in the cell. Takes away from what the cell's supposed to be. It's supposed to be an ender. That's what steel cage matches were. Keep everybody out. These two got to settle it. It's got to be barbaric. It's got to be dangerous. There should be blood. Now, blood has apparently come back, whether it's real or fake, take your pick. In WWE, they're doing a pay-per-view called Bad Blood. They're making a big deal of it. If Punk and Drew are going to keep going, that's where we're at. They've already bloodied Punk, whether it was real or fake. They showed blood. They showed him bloodied. They've taken it to that level. Drew lost his mind because Punk ruined the cash-in, and he wrecked the post-show. And they made, there was the posts of Jackie and Adam Pearce and, Wade Barrett had to get off the seat and stop it. Felt very real. Felt very storyline progressive. I loved it. Drew, still mad. Last night, knocking people over, pissed off. Punk can't be there. He's part of the problem, too. You can't put them in a one-on-one match at SummerSlam and go, oh, there's rules. That 5 count, you better break it. Nobody, why would they care? It's not about a win and loss. It's about hurting the other guy right now. That's all they're trying to do. More so Drew on Punk. Punk's being a shit stirrer and trying to mess things up. Drew wants to hurt Punk, but they should both want to hurt each other. This is not about a championship. This is not about positioning themselves for a championship. You would think the winner of this feud would do that, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that, nor do we need to be. There is a lot left. Think about that. This started at the Rumble. You want to say it started at Survivor Series when Drew walked out, and take that for what you will. Okay. But it ratcheted up at the Rumble because when those two touched each other, Punk got hurt. And they played into it. And it's been the best thing for both of them, honestly. And I said this when Punk came back. It's not about Punk's matches. It's about the build to Punk's matches. It's about Punk using this thing right here. Punk has slowed down significantly. There's nothing wrong with that. It happens. He's been quite banged up over the last couple of years since coming back to AEW and now back in WWE. I'm not clamoring for CM Punk matches. We're not going to get the matches that he put on at his best, and that's fine. It's about the build. It's about him using this thing. It's about wanting to see them get it in the ring at some point, but it's more about the journey to get there and what happens next. And a way to hide the fact that Punk is not operating at the level that he used to is to have a brawl and do stuff like this and have an unsanctioned match at SummerSlam. And that could be something, by the way, as I talk through it now and realize that Solo and Cody will very likely main event SummerSlam. You're not going to have an unsanctioned match at the main event. This is not what AEW, and they haven't done this for forever with the lights out stuff. They're not going to do that. But you could have that in the middle of the show. And there could be a winner, and that fight can continue. There could be a winner for the night at SummerSlam. And after the match is over, or, 2 segments later, they meet again, and they're still fighting. And at that point, you have to encapsulate them. And how do you put them somewhere where they can't mess with anything else? You put them in the cell. Because the cell is the only place where they can settle it, focusing on each other and not messing with the rest of the show. If they do an unsanctioned match at SummerSlam and there's a finish and it continues after that and it messes with the rest of the show, Adam Pearce has every reason to say, I talked to the board of directors, blah, 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 blah. You two are too dangerous for the rest of the show, and you two need to settle this where you're only focused on each other and can't mess anything up but each other. That's why you're going in Hell in a Cell. That's a very easy way to get to that match. It's very hot. And I think there's Drew fans out there. There'll be more Punk fans out there naturally just because of his fan base. But there's people that are behind Drew. And they should be behind Drew. And I get that. But there's a lot left in this. And they did a good job of last night. Brought this poll up earlier. Who do you prefer as your main character on Monday Night Raw? Saw a lot of Rhea, saw a lot of Chad last night. 72% of you say Rhea Ripley, 18% say Chad Gable, 9% say both, which is what we saw last night. I'll throw this question out here, going off of our Priest and Gunther conversation. Coming out of SummerSlam, obviously there's no briefcase, so it's 2 answers. Who would you rather see as the World Heavyweight Champion when SummerSlam is over? Priest retains, new champ Gunther. I'm going to put that up as a poll as well. Let us know what you think about that. Also, once again, for those joining us, thank you. If you're just getting here late, welcome to the Wrestling Match Show. That's it right there, thewrestlingmatchshow.com. It's always right above Todd. Hello, Todd. You can subscribe there. You won't miss anything. You can see our shorts on there. You can see past episodes. You can see our interviews with Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder, who was looking for a match with John Cena, and why shouldn't he be? Joey Janela, Dan Reichert. We've had quite the cavalcade. Chef reactions. But we also have memberships now. And you can check out the tier starting at $2.99. We'll be doing everything from members-only live chats, live stream for various live events, discounts on our merch when it comes out, which will be out soon, private Zoom calls here, and if you want to pick a show to watch with me, watch it back like I've done with Chef Reactions, you could do that. That goes up and up on the tiers, but they start at $2.99, so please check them out at thewrestlingmatchshow.com on our YouTube page. All there for you. Very active community page, as this is one of the most interactive. It is the most interactive pro wrestling show out there. And I continue with that conversation. Let's talk about the other main thread of Raw last night, Chad Gable. Going around to everybody going, I figured it out. There was a little of the goofy Chad that came back. Not the sinister Chad. I don't know if I love that. Saying, Pierce, Uncle Howdy's Bo Dallas. You saw Pierce's face like, yeah, I know. And then bringing it up to Alpha Academy. Openly acknowledging that. Saying he's going to go out there and call Bo out. And he did. And as Bo comes out, as Bo Dallas, blazer, Wyatt 6 t-shirt, pants, like he's selling a shirt like anybody else, gets attacked by the Creed brothers. I'm not the only one to say it, but Chad needed a different backup. Tried to get Alpha Academy with him. I'll get back to that in a second because I'm a little perplexed on where that goes. But they beat him up. They beat him up good, and he's laughing through it. But he's selling. He's not indestructible. He was Bo Dallas. He wasn't Uncle Howdy. He was Bo Dallas. He was indestructible. And they kick him that one more time. It was a great kick. It sounded good. And they're posing over him. And he's laughing. And he gets in the corner. And the others come out and make the save. And he still did the pose. But he did the pose. There it is. Which was so interesting. Because now we've seen the faces of everybody revealed. Including Bo. We saw Bo out of that Wyatt 6 universe talking to Adam Pearce. We don't know what that conversation was. Does that harken back to when Adam Pearce's social media went a little haywire and he was the postman again? The fact that he did not divulge that information to Bo Dallas. There's little threads here we can now pull from. What's going on here? Is he in with them? But Bo posing with the group who are now behind him with the mask and full character. And he's Bo. He's not Uncle Howdy, even though we know they're the same person. And they're acknowledging it's the same person. What's the dynamic? That's my question. Is this a Finn Balor demon thing? Where you know they're the same person. And with Finn, you know, that demon character juices him up. It gives him something more. Now he's lost. As Damian lost to Joe. Lost to Edge. The Roman thing with the top row. He's lost. He's lost his demon. It's not unbeatable. Is Howdy not necessarily that level, but the voice that's up here. The voice that makes him do those things. Because by showing what you showed last night, and they did this a bit with Bray, if you remember. When Bray came back, he had the lantern, but then he came out and cut a promo in street clothes. And then he had really just the one match with LA Knight, the lights out thing, and there was a character there. But for the most part, when Bray came back, he was Bray. He was in street clothes. And there was the stuff with Howdy getting in his head. That's kind of what we saw that is what we saw from Bo Dallas last night. He was Bo in street clothes. But he's with the group, so they're acknowledging that. And they're acknowledging that he's Uncle Howdy. So are we going to acknowledge? Like Eric Rowan is on the latest tape. And that was some heavy, real stuff. Talking about losing his brother. Brody, Luke Harper, John Huber, whatever you'd like to call him. How tight they were. What he meant to him. Started to get back up. This is a guy that didn't cut promos in WWE. All I could think of when this happened was, this is the guy who had the animatronic spider, and look what he's putting out there. It was the Vinter. He was the backup to Daniel Bryan, excuse me. We'll get that name right one time. Think of all the crap he did after that. Even the Bludgeon Brothers, as goofy as they made them up, very dominant tag team. But what he did last night was so impressive and so real and so interesting to not only bring Bray into the story, which Bo has, but bring in Brody. You know, that hasn't really been talked about. You can ask a lot of people who were friends with Brody or who were in the company when he passed that they were not happy with how his passing was treated. That's a Vince thing. So to bring him back up last night and acknowledge what he meant to Eric Rowan, it's real. I don't think it was done in poor taste, because I think what Eric Rowan said last night was very real. I do think he lost his way. And then another major gut punch when Bray passed. So they're using that. And I don't think it's disrespectful. And the family's, you know, I'm not speaking for either side's family. But we are talking about someone who, in Bo, it's his brother. And Rowan working as closely as he did with those two people who passed. That was real. I think it still celebrates their memory to show you how much those two people meant to him. And I think by bringing up those names, and I think by putting Chad Gable in the middle of this, there has not been a single heel promo about it. This is all babyface stuff. It's all real. I made the connection in a very different way because it's a very different story. Jeff Jarrett is telling real stories about Owen Hart and what he meant to him. Those are all real. There's no bullshit. There's no wrestling story. Those are real stories about a man that he connected with. And you can tie that into the tournament that Owen's wife is part of, that his son is part of, Martha and Oj. They're there they're close with Jeff. Jeff upholding the honor of Owen Hart. And yeah, there's wrestling involved when he doesn't win and he's the sentimental favorite. And then he's not happy with all the BS that happened in the Hangman and Jay White match. So he's going to be the special enforcer. So he could be there at the end to stop Hangman from using the belt, to get pushed on his butt, to be there to present the trophy and the title with Martha to Danielson, because he should be the one to do that. And guess what? It made that matter more. But he also got to celebrate the life of his friend. And he talked about the closure and Martha being there and Oj being there. That's all real stuff. It's still a show. There's still supposed to be, it's an escape, whether it's, you want to call that fun, you want to call that an emotional escape, you want to call it storytelling. It all worked. Those are very real feelings that happen to be on your television screen as a wrestler. This is not, the goofiness of like a Chase U or the D'Angelo family. And that's so wrestling all the way with everyone's playing a character there. That's what they are. There's no realness in those stories, and there's not supposed to be. Wrestling doesn't have to have that all the time. But when you can tie that in, and you do it well, and you do it respectfully, and you do it where everybody's on board, man, you can make some magic. And what Eric Rowan did last night made you feel something. And the way it was shot and the way it was handled, it was beautiful. And that's a babyface group to me. That is a group of people who lost their way, and they've been gathered up, and they've been united by Bo, and Bo's been trying to find his way since Bray passed. And this is how they're going to do it. And when you put someone who has had no redeeming qualities in the middle of it, in Chad Gable, that's a babyface group. One thing I did want to mention as it related to Chad, because they're keeping it alive, but I don't know if the reaction is going to be what it was or if it ever can be. But Chad interacting with Alpha Academy, with Otis and Tozawa and Maxine, and them actually just offering themselves up to help Woods, there was very specific and focused interaction between Gable and Otis. And Otis was more serious. And I saw it and I went, well, that's still alive. But is that big moment of Otis turning on, is it over? Did we see it on Raw? And that was it. That push that I'm taking them away, it kind of feels like there won't be a bigger moment than that, even if they've kept them connected a little bit. It does kind of feel like that big Otis moment is not going to happen. And that Chad has moved on to bigger and better things and being part of one of the most important stories in the company right now, and the establishment of the Wyatt Six, that overtook it. I think they still could have done both. But maybe that was a way to keep Chad strong enough and important enough and presented at a high enough level that anything that happens with the Wyatt Six is a big deal. They shifted, I'll tell you that. They shifted him away. I'm not saying this was always, or they shifted away from the plan. It certainly feels like it was the plan. But I'm wondering if an opportunity was missed with Otis, or can they come back to it? Did that ship sail on what maybe could have been another run for Otis as a singles? Let's throw that out there as well. I'll throw that out there and we get it up as a poll potentially here. Did WWE miss the boat on a big Otis singles run? And I'm not talking about in the past. I'm talking right now. With how things have been handled with Chad and Alpha and Wyatt Six. Did they miss the boat? Was there a chance there? Has the ship sailed on the Otis breakout singles run? I hope not. Well, we will have to see. I think I hit everything that I wanted to. I'll tell you what. When I saw that the main event was Sammy and Dragunov, that's a good match on paper. Sammy's super over. Is that a main event? With all the other stuff going on in the show. With Rhea and Liv and Dom and Priest and Gunther and Drew with Punk. That's the main event, huh? Of course, they have a good match, and Bron supposed to be gone. He comes out and he wrecks them both. And the final shot of Monday Night Raw is right there. You want to know what they think of Bron Breakker? There it is. Closed out Monday Night Raw. The copyright was up, and he was standing over one of the biggest babyfaces in the company because he wrecked him. It felt right. They've done a very good job with Bron. They've put him in great spots. That camera was made for his spear, that coyote camera. They have maximized his strengths. They have hidden his weaknesses. His stuff with Pierce is usually backstage. He hung in there with Sammy when he's gone toe-to-toe on the mic. But it's about his chaos. It's about him being able to wreck anybody. It's that spear that could cut through anybody. I will continue to say it's the best spear since Goldberg because of how he hits it. Sure, others have used the move. Bronze looks like a form tackle from the 1970s in football, and I mean that in the best way possible. I'm going to guess maybe we go to a triple threat at Mania, at SummerSlam. Unless they do Bron and Sammy again, but Ilya's got a right to it, and obviously Bron and Ilya have been tied together. They can go triple threat at SummerSlam if they want to. But I would have to think that Bron is walking out of SummerSlam in some way, shape, or form as the Intercontinental Champion. And I think by the way they've booked him since he lost to Sammy, that loss doesn't feel like as big of a deal. And any concern about an undefeated streak since coming to Raw and SmackDown, that's out the door too. He basically walked through the loss and speared his way through the loss and kept it going. It didn't hurt him at all. So a lot done on Raw. I'm still not quite sure SummerSlam feels big. It doesn't. To me right now, man, a lot's got to get filled in a short period of time for the second biggest show of the year. I happen to think Rumble's number 2. Other people think SummerSlam. If they think SummerSlam is number 2, there's a lot more that's got to be added to it. I mean, right now, if you're figuring out the card, Cody Solo, Gunther Priest, Liv and Rhea, Nia and Bayley, Logan and LA Knight, Drew and Punk. So that's that six matches. It's SummerSlam. This is not going to be one of those 5-match shows. Is it Bo and Chad Gable? Is it some kind of 6-man there? Do they get them in the ring finally? It feels fine. It doesn't feel massive. I'd like to hit a couple AEW things. I know we'll get into that more, into their show tomorrow. But I didn't get to talk about some of this stuff. I've talked a little bit about the Owen with Jeff Jarrett and Danielson, and it really well done. I told people there, and I got similar reaction, that the Owen as a whole, men and women, the best use of the tournament that company's had. And I know they're very happy with how everything came across. I told people that, the way Jeff was used, Hangman's comeback, Danielson winning because it's his last shot. Now you set up Danielson and Swerve. So well done. Stuff with Jeff, Seems like Hangman's going to be in blood and guts. Hangman's in blood and guts. I kind of want to see Jeff Jarrett in blood and guts now. And if we end up with Jeff Jarrett and Hangman and some kind of walk and brawl at Wembley, all right, I'm good with it. But they nailed that. And Danielson and Swerve feels like a really big match. And, there could be something to Danielson winning and then Swerve winning it back. But, man, if this is Danielson's, this is it in terms of being a full-time wrestler. If he loses at Wembley, where do you go from there? Wrestle Dream in Seattle again. There's some matches he hasn't had yet. Where do you go if Danielson loses in Wembley? Not a bad question to have. Great story to build. Swerve, the guy in AEW right now as the champ. Danielson, considered by a lot of people to be the guy in wrestling for the last 10 years, probably, if not more. But in terms of mainstream, main event notoriety, Bryan Danielson's, to a lot of people, has been the best wrestler. And might have the best track record of not having bad matches. Him and Swerve at Wembley is ships passing in the night. two baby faces. The crowd will be good. I mean, they're at 40-something thousand. I hope they get to 50. They don't have a lot of time, but I think they'll get 45,000 there, maybe 50 if they push. Let's see what the promotion is from now until Wembley. But now you've set up that, and you've set up the other half. I am not a wrestling hyperbole person. I didn't like doing this in WWE because I thought it took away from credibility. But I thought the Mariah May turn at the end of the tournament was as good of a heel turn as you're going to do. Because that is not an image that everybody gets to put forth. Sometimes things just work out perfectly. I am not going to pretend to tell you that I knew that it would be Mariah turning on Tony. It always felt, and all about Eve and the stories they've pulled from, it always felt like Tony would keep Mariah under her thumb, and at some point Mariah would have enough, and the people would be behind Mariah. Tony's character got over, and got over big, and the whole act was over big. And when you looked at that tournament, sure, you could have said, this is Mariah's tournament, it makes sense. And she won, and she's looked credible every step of the way. I've said this so much. Easily one of their best signings. For the return they've gotten on her, also, she's come through, and they have booked her well, and they have booked the act consistently. Pushes are not about titles. Pushes are about being consistently used in stories. Not as fodder, not on every week because you're there to lose, not because you're a good hand, because you can make the most of your minutes. You give them a reason to book you. You draw. The fans are behind you. You stay active. You're always doing something. That's what a push is. That is how people recognize who you are and learn about you. They see you every week. Stop starts or, they were on this week but not on next week. Fans don't have that attention span anymore. They'll go look at something else. Oh, those guys, we haven't seen them in a couple weeks. Unless there's a reason and storyline why you don't see someone or don't see a faction or you don't say, hey, they'll be back next week, fans move on. Tony, Mariah, Luther, the whole act. That's funny, Jeroy. The whole act has been on our screens somewhere at least once a week on AEW programming. So we were invested, and they worked Mina into it. And the battle was Mina and Tony over the AEW Women's World Championship, but also over the Battle of Mariah. And they all came together. And it seemed like more than ever, Tony and Mariah were like this. And Tony backed her. I loved. And you guys know I was at Forbidden Door. I went to watch as a fan. Tony being out there in her Stardom tracksuit, almost in like I still have the curlers and I'm not ready yet for my match later on, but being out there on 0 Hour to support Mariah, who would go on to defeat Saraya and move on in the tournament. She cared. It wasn't BS. At the beginning, it was very much like, we'll see. But she cared. And then obviously the story between Mariah and Mina and Tony played out in the title match, and then Tony won, and they all walked out together, and it seemed like they were very close. And Tony was there for all Mariah's matches in the tournament, and she's there against Willow. They have a good match, and Mariah wins. Go get your trophy. Go get your title. And we get up there, and Mariah sprints ahead, and the belt shot she put on. And if you're looking closely, Tony, they get the camera away from Tony, and she very likely bladed. But that belt shot, if you would have told me it was a hard way, I would have believed it immediately. And she's whipping her on top of the belt shot, which would have been enough. And she's whipping her with it. And Tony's going, Mariah. Oh, so good. Because she was crushed. Not physically. She was. but emotionally, how disturbed and sad she was about it. And they put the graphic up of the two of them at Wembley. And they took the wide shot. Mariah had the blood, took the picture, and she blew off the camera. And they did such a good job. Credit to their social team, video team, of getting Mariah coming backstage. She's got some of the blood smeared on her face. She pushes the camera away, and it fades right into, the transition goes right into Tony coming back, and she is an absolute mess. God, did that look good. Great storytelling by them. Great job by their social team and video team to put that together. I am so invested in that match. And I think if they keep this up, we're going to hear from Mariah tomorrow. I have absolutely no problem with that being the main event of Wembley. I don't think it will. I don't. But Mariah being from there, Tony making her name there, coming over from, working in New Zealand and working in Australia. They could do a hell of a job with this. I still think Danielson Swerve is the main event. That's okay. But they've built two very credible main events. And they had an absolute home run with the Owen tournament. And they made it matter. And if you think back in past years when Britt and Cole won or Willow and Ricky won, this tournament, especially announcing it with the winners get the title shots at Wembley. Danielson cutting that promo saying, it's my last shot, but it's my best shot. The Jeff story. Hangman coming back. You weave Mariah and Tony's story into the tournament. Willow being involved with Chris and that story. And that still has legs. They've gotten a lot out of this. And there's more to still get out of it in addition to the title matches. They set the bar pretty high. Their third go-around of the Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament was a home run. They're putting on some very good shows right now. I hope the promotion kicks up. I hope the numbers pick up. It's good programming. We will talk more about MJF and where that's going with Ospreay, because they have a match. There's two big matches already. You got Okada and Swerve, champ versus champ on Dynamite 250, and you got MJF Ospreay for the international title. We'll talk more about those matches tomorrow, how I feel about the booking of them, and what it might mean to the future of that company and any future TV deals. We'll get into all that tomorrow. We'll talk more about NXT, the Joe Hendry show, or will it be? Because I think they need him. We'll see where he is tonight. Will they say his name? Will he appear? What does that mean for everybody else in NXT? Is NXT drawing right now based on the thought that other things can happen outside of the roster? It's working. Are they building towards more? Do they need the thought, the hope, the belief that someone who's not on the NXT roster is going to make their presence felt? Is that getting people to tune in? We'll see. We'll talk more about that. We got a lot more to get to this week. Make sure for the rest of the week you're getting those super chats in. Please do that. You're getting the giveaway for the signed Double J Bendy. Yeah, that Double J. Signed for us here at the Wrestling Mat. Super chats for the rest of the week get you into that giveaway. Also, don't forget, membership tiers are now available, starting at $2.99, going all the way from members-only live chats, live streams for shows coming up. It could be Raw, it could be SmackDown, it could be NXT, Dynamite, Collision. You'll get discounts when our merch comes out. And then the higher up tiers you go, private Zooms, and even the ability to pick out an old event and watch it with me. Go check out our tiers at thewrestlingmatchshow.com for membership starting at $2.99. And tomorrow, we'll be back to talk about wrestling even more. See you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, like every single weekday, right here on the Wrestling Mat.